Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
Peace. This is The Enemy's Public, and I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everyone is enjoying this beautiful Saturday evening. As beautiful as this evening is, I want to discuss something that's not so beautiful. Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. I wanted to have that discussion this evening because I don't see what's so beautiful about it when it's going to affect so many people. Now, billions in Medicaid cuts passed by Republicans as part of President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. It will have widespread negative implications on people across the United States. Multiple experts said Trump's touted tax overhaul and spending cuts package, which passed Thursday on a 218-214 vote in the House after months of haggling in both chambers of Congress, have provoked broader concerns about healthcare access and funding, notably to vulnerable populations who rely on Medicaid and on the social safety net. The CBO estimates the roughly $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts over the next decade will result in 12 million people losing coverage by 2034. Trump had repeatedly promised not to cut Medicaid benefits, including the White House own admission as recent as March. The cuts are deeply unpopular, according to polls, and presents a political challenge for Republicans ahead of the next year's midterm elections. What is the big, beautiful bill? The one big, beautiful bill is a sweeping reconciliation package that advances Trump's domestic policy agenda. It includes major tax reforms, spending cuts, and regulatory changes across multiple sectors. The bill passes the House and the Senate along party lines and is positioned as a cornerstone of Trump's second-term legislative goals. Now, the 1,200-page package will permanently extend the 2017 Trump tax cuts while exempting overtime pay, tips, and Social Security income from taxation. Impose 80-hour per month work requirements on many adults receiving Medicaid and apply existing SNAP rules to additional beneficiaries. Repeal most clean energy tax credits created under President Biden. See, this is political. This is the yin and yang. You know, a lot of presidents wants to undo what the previous president's done, whether it's good or bad. See, that's why I don't like politics, and I don't like politicians even. I like them even less than politics, because they're all bloodsuckers of the poor, in my sentiment. And this bill will authorize a $40 billion border security surge and fund a nationwide deportation initiative. The bill will also raise the federal debt ceiling by $5 trillion, with the Congressional Budget Office estimating that it could add $3.4 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years, meaning that We won't have a surplus. We have a deficit. A deficit is not good, in case you're wondering. And when did the big, beautiful bill pass the Senate? The bill narrowly passed the Senate on Tuesday after an overnight session. The 50-50 vote, generally along partisan lines, was tipped in Republicans' favor by Vice President J.D. Vance, who casted the decisive tiebreaker vote. How convenient. How convenient is that? They asked, has the big, beautiful bill been signed? It was signed yesterday during a ceremony. They were very ceremonial when they signed this bill. That's not going to affect any of them. I consider this a $1 billion package, rather a billionaire's package. This bill was written by his constituent. It's not about saving. Of course, you can see that it's not about saving the country's money. If it's going to, you're going to say you're going to cut spending, but you're still adding 3.4 to the damn deficit. Now, President Trump signed his package of tax breaks and spending cuts into law Friday during a White House ceremony. Now, the bill includes changes to eligibility for Medicaid, including mandating that Medicaid recipients must carry out some kind of work for at least 80 hours a month, which has prompted many healthcare experts and lawmakers to warn that it will only push millions off the program. And what about those who are disabled? What about those who are too ill to go to work? You're going to have them work 80 hours a month. Some people really need those health benefits because they just can't afford to go to the doctor and pay out of pocket. They just can't afford to purchase the medication out of pocket. And some of them, a lot of them are too ill to go to work. Now, and other concerns include diminished care in rural communities and increased out-of-pocket costs for doctors' visit, which is one of the main concerns. To accommodate the bill's signature tax cuts, which mostly benefits the wealthy, the cuts have to come from somewhere, according to Miranda Yavir, assistant professor of health policy and management at the University of Pittsburgh. 1 in 5 Americans relies on Medicaid for their health coverage, and 1 in 7 Americans rely on SNAP for their food security. So cutting these critical programs will be devastating. Roughly 92% of Medicaid beneficiaries are already working or would be exempt, according to KFF. But what threatens their coverage is not non-compliance with work hours, rather the administrative burdens of documenting their work or exemption, according to Yavir. For that reason, the requirements can be better characterized not as work requirement, but rather as a paperwork requirement. Some have characterized Medicaid paperwork requirements as a solution in search of a problem. And that's best described, a solution searching for a problem. Because contrary to some characterizations of people playing video games in basements, most people on Medicaid are working or they would be exempt. I don't think it's a solution in search of a problem so much as it is a solution to a different problem: low income Americans being provided health insurance. Now, these same people who have low income is paying into the system, regardless of how much people make in their income. Taxes are being taken out of their pay, and they're contributing to whatever benefits they are receiving. Now, Jason Hasselworth, associate professor at the Truman School of Government and Public Affairs at the University of Missouri, agreed that the paperwork aspect is going to be an issue. We're going to have to see what are the regulations and what they look like. How do states implement this? Hasselworth told Newsweek, but he says he's not optimistic, especially coming from a Missouri standpoint. We have maybe the worst Medicaid agency in the country. I guess that's in Missouri. The call center wait times at the call center wait times at times have been the worst in the country. Chris Howard, a professor of government and public policy at William and Mary, told Newsweek that cuts to Medicaid and to the Affordable Care Act will have profound effects at the state level. Millions of people across the country will lose their health insurance, including an estimate of 300,000 in the state of Virginia. Basically, Republicans are trying to undermine big parts of the Affordable Care Act, which is another, it's a political thing, counter political thing. You know, Obamacare, having to replace them, Howard said. They learned to repeal and replace. Did not work in Trump's first term. It didn't. So now they just want to repeal. Just repeal it. And don't replace it with anything. Just repeal it. Large rural populations in some of the hardest hit states like Virginia and Kentucky, which have expanded Medicaid under the ACA, will receive reduced federal funding for individuals who rely on Medicaid. States can't run state deficits or budget deficits, and they are highly likely to replace all the lost funds, Howard said. Most people will lose coverage. In the healthcare system, every dollar of benefit to someone is also a dollar of income to someone else. Of course, because it's an industry, the healthcare industry is not an industry if it's not making any money. Hospitals and nursing homes, especially in rural areas, depend heavily on Medicaid dollars. Many of them will have to lay off workers or close down. If hospitals have to provide more uncompensated care to uninsured, there will be pressure on private insurance to raise rates. And not only that, when people go to hospitals and they're uninsured, they're not provided proper health care. They're not taken care of correctly. And they just, occupy a bed, don't get health care. Or if they do get health care, it's very little or it's inadequate. I want to show some news clippings about the aforementioned. And I also want to get to this Alligator, Alcatraz. Alligator, Alcatraz is a prison in Florida that used to be a airstrip that was built in 7 to 8 weeks, spent over $40 million building it. It can hold up to 3,000 detainees, and it's surrounded by alligators and other poisonous snakes, which makes it so wicked. It's so wicked. 1 second, please.
Tonight, the United States.
Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up real quick and then share my screen, and we'll be right with you. Even someone to even put there in their mind to have something such as a alligator, Alcatraz, that's wicked. That's coming from a wicked mind. You can't tell me that's not coming from a wicked mind. And I'm not celebratory because it's not happening to my people, because based on the credibility of politicians in wicked ass white America who say that they won't send some of us there to Alligator Alcatraz. I don't trust politicians, left or right. I can care less about United States politics. They're all wicked in my sentiment, all of them. Republicans, Democrats, two wings of the same unclean and hateful bird. I don't like any of them. Here we go.
Designed to serve as the foundation of the Trump agenda. The Senate will come to order. Senators preparing to kick off what will be a lengthy process to pass what President Donald Trump has dubbed his big, beautiful bill. At this stage, final passage is still not guaranteed. The massive package includes the extension of $4.5 trillion in Trump tax cuts. It also provides hundreds of billions of dollars to fund the Trump mass deportation program. But in an effort to rein in government spending, Republicans are overhauling benefits programs like Medicaid and SNAP, also known as food stamps, including new work requirements and forcing reauthorization to receive benefits every 6 months instead of 1 year.
It's really a terrifying time.
Those barriers make Courtney Leader nervous. The mom from Springfield, Missouri has a child with special needs and relies on Medicaid. She warns the extensive authorization process alone could lead to deserving people falling through the cracks.
We're not talking about living this life of luxury with Medicaid. We are honestly talking about this life and death, and how do we provide for our child in our home?
Her senator, Josh Hawley, shares those concerns, but signaled his intention to move the bill forward.
The Medicaid stuff in here, I think, is bad. I think we've delayed the worst of it.
There's still work to be done in the Senate to get the bill passed. But if it does, the identical package needs to be voted on in the House.
I guess they have to see people in pain and agony in order for them to realize the pain that they're causing, to people who need these, all these government issued funds, medical benefits. People actually need this stuff. I'm not speaking about those who take advantage of this in a negative manner. People actually need these things. And I'm not one to be celebratory when I see people suffering. I am for my people first, but I'm for the whole of humanity altogether. No one should suffer, especially in the richest country in the world. They always say this, so I'm going to use it on them, especially being the most powerful and richest person in the world. The people who are here, the so-called, citizens, should not be suffering at all. Shouldn't be hungry, should have adequate health care. They have veterans with inadequate health care. Put their life on the line, went and fought for the country to keep corporate America in power. The power that they have was fought not by the people who send people to fight, by young people or people who used to be young people who rose up the rank and file. And when I see someone who haven't been a part of the rank and file, they have to walk off Air Force One and the soldiers have to salute someone who don't give a damn about them. It don't sit with me right.
House. And already House members like David Valadao of California are warning they will vote no. Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes in the House and have the bill pass.
Ryan, what steps are Democrats going to take to try to slow this down?
Well, Jose, Democrats plan to force the Senate clerk to read every single word of this more than 900-page bill. Now, that's a process that could take up to 20 hours, but it ultimately will not prevent the bill from being voted on. And when that happens, Republicans believe they have enough votes for it to pass. Jose?
Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Well, now we're going to go to Bernie Sanders. He's talking about this so-called big, beautiful bill. And he shared almost the same sentiment as I do. I don't necessarily, rock with any politicians, left or right, Republicans or Democrats. But he's saying that the billionaires bought this bill. I agree with this, because it's not going to affect anybody in their tax bracket. The tax cuts and the tax breaks is going to benefit them. It's not going to benefit
Actually,
us.
Mr. President, I'm wrong. This is not a gift to the billionaire class. They paid for it. This bill is an absolute reflection of a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. And when billionaires spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars trying to elect a president or a senator or a member of Congress, they're not making that investment just for the fun of it. They want something in return. And this legislation, big time, is what they are getting in return.
Overall, I look at Bernie Sanders and I think this entire nation is backwards. And it's been weighed in the balance and found wanting. And it's not justifying its existence, this entire nation. They can never stand up in front of us and tell us that it's the elders for counsel and the young for war, because most of the people who are in the Senate, who are in the Congress, and who are in the seat of the most useless, to me, it's the most useless position in office in the United States. I don't think any of this should go higher than the Speaker of the House. The office of the presidency of the United States is useless. Speaker of the House should be in charge. It shouldn't go no higher than that. And everybody who ever held that office is useless. Now we got all these elders here holding on to a position. And by the time a young person get to their position, they're old as hell too.
So what is in this bill that they invested in? Well, if you are in the top 1%, you and the class you represent will receive a $975 billion tax break. $975 billion tax break at a time when the richest people in this country have never, ever had it so good. Further, this is really quite unbelievable. If you are among the wealthiest 0.2%, not talking about 1%, talking about the top 0.2%, you will be able to pay zero taxes on your $30 million inheritance. So all of you folks out there,
That means the bulk of the taxes are paid by the working class, so-called middle class, and the working poor, while the rich, the wealthy, pay very little taxes. And these are the people that those of us who vote into office to rob us of our tax dollars.
waiting to inherit at least $30 million. Today is a good day for you. Collectively, you will receive approximately $211 billion in tax breaks for the top 0.2%. Congratulations, you hit the jackpot. If you are a large corporation and you want to throw workers out on the street and replace them with artificial intelligence, or maybe you want to shift your profits to the Cayman Islands or other tax havens, you are going to get
America's intelligence is and always was artificial. It's never been real. It's always been fake. It's always been lies. So artificial intelligence, if you want to call it intelligent, has always existed in the United States.
a $918 billion tax break. Congratulations to the CEOs of large profitable corporations. But while the rich and large corporations make out like bandits in this bill, what does it do for low income and working families? Well, let me say a few words on that. If you are concerned about health care, which I suspect that everybody in the world is, this bill throws over 16 million people off the health insurance they have, according to the Congressional Budget Office, by cutting Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act by over $1.1 trillion. In other words,
Yeah, and this can also be a part of the depopulation program, because people are going to succumb if they don't have adequate health insurance or any health insurance at all. People will succumb. People will get sick and people will die. Yes, they will.
in other words, the top 1% getting a $975 billion tax break, and that is coming directly by throwing 16 million people off of the health insurance they have. This bill, for the first time, forces millions of Medicaid recipients who make as little as $16,000 a year to pay a $35 copayment every time they visit a doctor's office. So what is the impact of all of that? You throw 16 million people off healthcare. You force people who don't have any money pay a $35 copayment. So what's the impact of it? Well, this is not my view. This is what the Yale School of Public Health and the University of Pennsylvania determined based on a study that they did. And this is the result. And it is almost so horrific, so grotesque, that it is difficult to speak about. But they estimate that if this bill goes through with all of these cuts in healthcare, if 16 million people are thrown off of the insurance they have, over 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily every year. 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily in order to give tax breaks to billionaires who don't need them. In other words, this bill is literally a death sentence for low income and working class people. Further, if this legislation is enacted, rural hospitals all over the country, and I come from one of the most rural states in America. Rural hospitals are already struggling. But when you make massive cuts to Medicaid, many of them are going to shut down or not be able to provide the level of services they do today. In other words, this bill would be a disaster for rural America. It would also make massive cuts to community health centers and nursing homes who are very heavily dependent upon Medicaid funding. Bottom line is that this legislation is the most significant attack on the healthcare needs of the American people in our country's history. We already have, as everybody knows, a healthcare system which is broken, which is dysfunctional, and instead of addressing it,
as far as I'm concerned, it's never been health care. It's been an industry that generated a lot of money, but caring about the people's health, I think not. It's just like saying criminal justice system. When the one who is prosecuting, the one who is locking people up, the man who's sitting or the woman who's sitting in the judge chambers or on the bench are the criminals. For the most part, they are the criminals. So it is the criminal justice system. Because the
instead of doing what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people, we are throwing 16 million people off the health insurance that they have. But it's not just health care. The future of America rests with our children. And yet, in a nation which now has the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth,
old politicians don't give a damn about the youth. America, in particular, the United States, literally eat their young. They can care less about their young. They use their young to go and fight wars that's not of our best interest, wars that's not going to benefit us, wars that other people start, and when they get their ass kicked, they call us to come help them, i.e. Israel. So they don't care nothing about their young. The United States military is supposed to secure our borders and secure our territories domestic. I don't believe a nation should have a territory foreign. I don't believe in that. I just believe that people should protect their nations. I mean, I don't have a problem with protecting your allies. But if your allies are troublemakers, sometimes it's best that you let your allies get their ass kicked so they can stop being troublemakers. Peace to my brother Hurricane JW, my brother the realist McCoy, and Zoe with the locks. Peace, family.
on earth, this bill wipes out nutrition assistance for millions of hungry kids in America. We are literally taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids to give tax breaks to Mr. Bezos and Mr. Musk and Mr. Zuckerberg and the other multi-billionaires. If we understand that if we're going to compete effectively in the global economy, we need to have the best education system in the world, this bill makes $350 billion in cuts in education, with the result that working class kids will find it much harder to get the higher education they need to succeed in life. If you are concerned about the existential threat of climate change, and we're seeing heat waves right now, all over the world. This bill decimates investments in energy efficiency and sustainable energy like wind and solar and moves us in exactly the wrong direction with regard to energy. If you are concerned about our role in never-ending wars, this bill makes a bad situation even worse by handing out another $150 billion to the Pentagon, a 15% increase in an already bloated Pentagon.
They spend more money on weapons of mass destruction, more money on merchants of death than they do on agriculture, growing food, growing fruits and vegetables, and for the well-being of the youth. The only time they have interactions with the youth when they're trying to go and recruit them to join the military so they can be used to fight for corporate America, to keep corporate America in this position, in this world, to be the big bully speaking from the bully pulpit.
Budget. We don't have enough money to feed hungry children. We don't have enough money to make sure that people continue to have the health care that they need. Don't have enough money to make sure the kids can get a decent education. But somehow the military-industrial complex is going to get another $150 billion, 15% increase. Mr. President, in my view,
spend a lot of money on prison, they spend a lot of money on military. Prison and military. We're going to get to it a little later. They just spent billions to build the wall, hundreds of millions, tens of millions to build a makeshift prison in Florida, Alligator, Alcatraz, surrounded by alligators and poisonous snakes to house immigrants there. But given their credibility and given their wickedness, who's to say that one of us won't end up there? People say, well, it's unconstitutional. Since when do they give a damn about the Constitution? Starting from the race soldiers all the way up, from the race soldiers, law enforcement, all the way up, they don't give a damn about the Constitution or the rights of anyone.
Nobody in the Senate or the House should vote for this legislation, and I applaud all of the Democrats for voting against it. And I want to congratulate two Republicans, Senator Paul and Senator Tillis, for voting against it for different reasons, by the way, than I have. But I do find it interesting, and it does tell us where we are as a nation today, that when one of those senators, Senator Tillis, voted against it because he thought it was not a good bill for the people of his home state, North Carolina, suddenly the President of the United States went after him in a very, very vicious way. And today he announced that he will not be seeking re-election. So it appears now that the Republican Party has really become a party of the cult of the individual. The only thing you have to do now as a Republican is say, I agree with President Trump. I love President Trump. President Trump is right all of the time. Hey, that's all you got to do now to be a good Republican. There was a day when Republicans and Democrats understood that they were elected by their constituents. Yeah, you want to work with the president of your own party, nothing to do about that. But there was an understanding that you were also elected to represent your constituents and not simply pay.
See, that constituents, that's not being a public servant. You can work with your constituent, but when you work with your constituent, it has to be on behalf of the people that elected you. See, Bernie Sanders is letting us know that they don't care about the people. They only care about the constituent, because none of them stand and work on our behalf. None of them. It's all about their constituent.
Pay homage and bow down to every wish and whim of the president. Mr. President, during the vote-a-rama, I will be offering several amendments, which I hope will win support. Number one, at a time when 22% of our nation's seniors are trying to survive on less than $15,000 a year, my first amendment would fundamentally improve their lives in two significant ways. Number one, it would cut the price of prescription drugs under Medicare in half by making sure that our nation's seniors do not pay any more than Europeans or Canadians pay for the same exact drugs. And number two, with those savings, we're going to expand Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing. In other words, instead of throwing people off of healthcare, we're going to expand Medicare to provide a number of services that seniors desperately need and want. Secondly, Mr. President, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, my second amendment would eliminate the $211 billion estate tax for the top 0.2% that is included in this bill. They get a top 2%, as I mentioned,
Salute to peace to my comrade, Talk Your Talk Media. Thanks for tapping in. Salute to you. I appreciate it.
$211 billion tax rate. That is insane. We're going to get rid of that. And lastly, at a time when we spend more on the military than the next 9 nations combined, at a time when the Pentagon cannot account for trillions of dollars in assets, we are going to end the provision that allows the Pentagon to receive another $150 billion.
$150 billion. The Pentagon itself gets a budget higher than most nations have to spend as a nation. They get it. And the reason why they get that much money is that's what the money is backed by. It's backed by military might. It's worthless. And the people of the world is bullied into using that money. So it's backed by military might, and they can go all over the world and say, you're going to use this currency. And for the Pentagon to get more money after money's unaccounted for, lets you know the mindset of the government, because they want to be able to tell another country that they can't have something while having it themselves, i.e., nuclear weapons. I don't think any nation should have nuclear weapons, but the United States, Israel, other nations, and particularly those two, want to go and tell other people that you can't develop anything that would enable you to defend yourself in the event that I bully you. It's like telling a skinny kid he can't work out because you don't want him to get big enough to eventually defend himself against you. They want to speak from a bully pulpit and actually carry out their bullying all over the world.
Bottom line, Mr. President, is this country faces many crises: high rate of childhood poverty, kids going hungry, education system in deep trouble, healthcare system completely broken. And in virtually every single area, this bill takes us in precisely the wrong direction. when the wealthiest people in this country have never, ever had it so good. It is totally insane to be offering them $1 trillion in tax breaks so that we can cut healthcare, education.
This is why I say we can't fall for the weapons of mass distraction. The weapons of mass distraction is they use their propaganda machine to distract us with BS. Everybody's waiting to see whether or not Diddy's going to go to jail while they're doing stuff like this. It's underhanded stuff. Everybody's watching what's going to happen to an entertainer or other entertainers, you know, TMZ and all these other entertainment programs, or they'll have a segment in the news where they distract us. It's like I always say, you have to watch both hands in the fight. Both hands. You got to watch both shoulders in the fight. You see the shoulder flex, whatever shoulder flex, a punch coming from there. And you move in the opposite. If you move in the opposite of that shoulder, circular, throwing them off, not letting them throw you off. But they've been throwing the people off, using their weapons of mass destruction, the media, the news.
And nutrition. This bill is not what the American people want, and I hope very much we can defeat it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Now we're going to go to Senator Whitehouse, talking about the big beautiful bill. The Senate going to talk about it.
Mr. President, I rise today, and I will confess, I rise today a bit angry about this bill. This bill cooked up in back rooms, dropped at midnight, cloaked in fake numbers with huge.
Peace to my brother, T. Wriggles. Thanks for tapping in. Now, we all know when they do the voting, it's not necessarily that. We all know that Donald Trump doesn't do anything fair. He's a cheater. He always get around to doing things underhanded. And just so happened that his vice president broke the tie. How convenient is that? Broke the tie for them to pass the bill. How convenient is that?
Handouts to big Republican donors. It loots our country for some of the least deserving people you could imagine. When I first got here, this chamber filled me with awe and wonderment. Our leader, Harry Reid, frequently called me his happiest senator. Such was the awe and wonderment that I felt here. Today, I feel disgust. This piece of legislation is corrupt. This piece of legislation is crooked. This piece of legislation is a rotten racket. This place feels to me today like a crime scene. Get some of that yellow tape and put it around this chamber. The midnight transfer of wealth in this bill is disgusting. There's a backdrop here. The backdrop here is the wealth inequality in our country already, in which the wealthiest 1% of our population own 30% of the wealth. And the poorest half.
What do you expect from a 34 count convicted felon that became president of the United States, when he went to get sentenced for the crimes he was convicted of, instead of sentencing him, the judge postponed his sentence for 4 years. That lets you know that the Constitution, emphasis on the con, and the United States government, they're all full of shit. And America's jurisprudence is not worthy of wiping your ass with. It's not. You'll be desecrating your ass for wiping your ass with any of that paperwork that they say that they stand on.
Of our population together only own 3% of the wealth. Top 1%, third of the wealth. Bottom half of the population by income, 3% of the wealth. And against that backdrop, this bill transfers wealth from middle-class families to giant corporations, billionaires, and mega billionaires. And it transfers wealth from our children and grandchildren to present-day billionaires by adding $5 trillion to the debt limit to run up the debt of the country to fund the tax giveaways to these special interests and wealthy billionaires. How do they do that? Take away health care from 16 million Americans. Give huge tax breaks to billionaires. Most families have someone sit down once a month and go through the bills, and you try to figure out what bills you can pay. You may not pay the whole insurance bill. You may just pay.
Someone who doesn't do that can't relate to those who have to do that. When you have to sit at your desk and figure your bills out and send out the bills, send out the money to pay the bills. People who don't worry about that is not worry about those who have to worry about that.
The minimum. You may not pay your whole credit card bill. You may just pay the minimum. You're aware of exactly how much money you have because you need to make those payments. That's kitchen table world. Billionaire world is different. You have a family office, you never see bills. You don't even know how much money you have, not even to the nearest $100,000. And you don't care because you got more than you could ever spend in your life. You could pay taxes like regular people, but there's something about your acquisition of wealth that can't stop. So you.
Why isn't it written in the legislation? Why isn't there a bill? He's standing up here talking this, but why isn't there a bill that they're signing into law that they have to pay a certain amount? They should have to pay a certain amount of their money like everybody else. Not someone of the working class or the working poor should have to pay more taxes than people than people that don't even know how much money they have. Can you imagine having so much money that you don't even keep track? You know it's there. To the point that you don't even worry. He's standing up here talking this, but it should be a law and people should go to prison. Just like they send entertainers to prison for not paying taxes. when they actually earn their money, unlike these politicians. Entertainers actually earn their money. Politicians don't earn their money. They take our money. They get paid with our money. And some of them become wealthy just by getting into politics. That's why I say that the office of the presidency is useless. It's just useless. Speaker of the House should be the highest office in government. All those other offices, useless.
You won't pay taxes like a normal person. You demand special treatment. You pay less of a tax rate than a firefighter, for God's sake. And that's not enough for you. Now you come here to this Senate floor wanting even more favors. You already don't know how much money you have. You could pay regular taxes and it wouldn't take a day from sunning on your private island, a day from cruising in your private yacht, a jet trip on your private jet, a ski trip to your private chalet. Nothing in your life would change if you had to pay taxes like a regular person, but you just don't want to. And the third is, oh, I should add.
Because someone with that much money feel that they have risen above the condition of normal people. And they also feel that we are beneath them. And why would they have to obey rules that we have to obey? They're above us in their sentiment because of what they have as far as money. Their so-called wealth. So of course they're not gonna obey rules that normal people have to obey. It's the same as when everybody was walking around wearing masks, in particular, our people, and some white people was being stopped asking why they're not wearing masks, and they're looking like, why do I have to obey rules that niggas obey? Those are niggas. Let them wear. Let them. We shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to come together and gather in our places. No, make them stand 6 feet apart. Make them obey rules. The rules is not for us. The rules are for them. And that's what most people with a lot of money, they think that they don't have to obey rules like normal people. That's why dude was running around here acting like he acting, and they had to humble his ass. I don't know if they did it, but if this don't humble his stupid ass, I guess they're gonna have to up the ante. He's walking around saying I get what I want, yelling, screaming, throwing tantrums and shit. Speaking about your boy Diddy. And the people who got more money than him is showing him as much money as you have. You're not one of us, nigga. You're not one of us.
On the tax breaks, a lot of it goes to corporations. This bill doesn't just give big tax breaks to big corporations. It gives big tax breaks to big corporations that move jobs and investment offshore away from America. And it just doesn't give tax breaks to corporations that move jobs and investment offshore away from America. It gives tax breaks for doing that. It gives tax breaks for offshoring American jobs and offshoring American investment. It is the world's worst tax policy. It takes an already corrupted tax code and bends it even further in the favor of mega billionaires and big offshoring corporations. And last, what does this bill do? It causes this transfer of wealth from regular people to the wealthy.
Exactly.
It raises your costs to raise their profits. And I'm here to talk about.
And that's one of the main things that is going to do. A lot of our people are not paying attention. Some of our people are just hateful because they see things happening to other people, and And because it's not
Before we
happening
get
to us, we're celebratory that it's not happening to us. And we need to understand who we're dealing with. When you're dealing with wicked ass people, you need to understand that
House Republicans, after
what they'll do to other people, if they have it in their mindset to do that to others, they will attempt to do it to us. Just like that Alligator Alcatraz. Who's to say if somebody's convicted of a crime in Florida or in the nearby states or anywhere in the United States, or somebody convicted of federal crimes, who's to say that they won't send one of us to that damn prison surrounded by alligators and poisonous snakes? Who's to say?
some defections have passed Trump's spending bill. This is that big budget clash we've been following. It heads to the president's desk, where Donald Trump will be signing it into law tomorrow. We have the nonpartisan estimates here. The CBO says the bill adds $3 trillion plus the deficit. It'll slash over $1 trillion from healthcare and Medicaid. 10 to 12 million Americans ultimately could be booted off their health coverage. Funnels a lot of money to ICE and border enforcement, 100B over there. Trump and Republicans are celebrating however tough this was, longer, slower, more defections than they wanted. Ultimately, as they say, a win is a win. They set out to pass this thing. They lost some votes along the way. They even had some parts of it stripped by the parliamentarian, but they won passage today. Not without a fight. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries was on a warpath discussing the risks and the problems in the bill and doing what Democrats have done increasingly in the second Trump term, which is find different ways, sometimes symbolic, sometimes even physical, to get up and show that they're fighting and to command some attention even against Donald Trump, whose entire skill set is PR and attention. You're looking at some of the thunderous applause there as he continued on the record-breaking speech, 8-hour plus, the longest speech in the history.
Now, this is a president who wanted to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, meaning that you want to hire and have all qualified people in positions, and everybody that's in his administration, including himself, is DEI. Everybody. And the minute he started doing DEI, he was things started happening. You're taking people who are qualified for a position, putting people that you want in that position, and then disasters happening. I haven't seen in my, it's not that I see any other president as a good person, because I've been here for a little while. And I come to the conclusion that the office is useless, and everybody who was ever in the office, at least in my lifetime, was useless. So just get rid of the office. If you want to do something good, say, okay, we're going to get rid of the office of the presidency of the United States. Then you'll be doing something. Other than that, everybody's useless.
Of the United States House. This began around 5 a.m. this morning.
I rise today in strong opposition to Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. This disgusting abomination, this reckless Republican budget is an immoral document, the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. The American people will not get over it, but they will get even next November. Extraordinary levels of corruption. Got some folks in this town, they go to church and they pray on Sunday. P-R-A-Y. And then they come to Congress and pray P-R-E-Y on the American people. I'm not down with that.
That dude been listening to me, using my wordplay. He's been using my wordplay.
Kind of faith, no matter what the outcome is on this singular day, we're going to press on. Press on for the rule of law. Press on for the American way of life. Press on for democracy. We're going to press on until victory is won. I yield back.
He yielded, but only after breaking the record. That marathon address went down pretty well, considering the Democrats are losing the budget battle here, which is expected. They don't have the same number of votes as Republicans. Some congressional math is just that. But you see here, Leader Jeffries flanked by Democratic colleagues who.
We're going to move on from this, and we're going to go to the most corrupt president in the history of the United States. He currently resides.
I think what Donald Trump is demonstrating time and
he is the most corrupt president. Not that the other ones wasn't just as corrupt. All the others were just as corrupt, and they did what they were told by the lobbyists, the ones. No president gets that office by himself with just mere votes. No president. The lobbyists, they have people who invest in these people. That's why they do what they're told when they're in that office. So anybody who think that a president get in, you're going to a poll and you're voting and you voted that person in. No, you didn't. The lobbyists got that person in. Can you imagine spending hundreds of millions of dollars to get a job that's only paying $400,000 a year? That lets you know what time it is. President of the United States only make $400,000 a year, and then he's provided for 4 years everything free. So that money is sitting collecting interest. By the time he do 4 years, come on, got $1.2 million. $1.4 million. My bad.
time again is that he prefers to be a king than a president.
According to recent estimates, the Trump family and its partners have made some $320 million in trading fees since the president's meme coin launch.
I can assure you the president acts with only the interests of the American public in mind, putting our country first and doing what.
You can't tell me this person right here is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can't tell me she is qualified to be standing up there. You can't tell me that. No way.
What's best for our country, full stop.
You made a lot of money, sir.
How much?
Several billion dollars, it seems like, in the last several days.
This is the most corrupt White House in the history of the country.
My name is Donald K. Sherman. I am the Executive Director and Chief Counsel at
Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization devoted to ensuring the integrity of our government institutions.
Donald Trump has gone from lying about what he will do in order to comply with ethics rules to ignoring them altogether. A clear example of that is the Ethics Pledge, where the Ethics Pledge had certain restrictions on folks in his administration. And now in the second term, it's significantly reduced. What we have seen with President Trump is not just a failure to abide by these norms and laws, but an open hostility to these founding principles.
Even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying
Donald Trump's corruption is.
He don't know whether or not he has to uphold the Constitution of the United States when he was sworn in. That's what he swore to do, but he don't know. I tell you, boy, the cracker is something else.
It's costing you, me, your neighbors, your children, both money and safety. The threat of Donald Trump's emoluments is only increasing. And now we're also seeing he has a much larger opportunities and a much different portfolio, which is affording foreign adversaries, foreign allies, foreign influence seekers to impact his bottom line in new and increasingly dangerous ways. So the emoluments clauses are parts of the Constitution that were particularly concerned with presidential conflicts of interest and making sure that as we moved from monarchy to a presidency, that our presidents were accountable to the American public as opposed to accountable to foreign leaders, and that they treated each state among the colonies or among the new country equally. So there's two emoluments clauses in the Constitution. One is foreign emoluments clause and one is the domestic emoluments clause. And essentially they cover the same kind of thing. What gifts, profits, and other emoluments a president can accept and from whom. But what we don't want is foreign government officials funneling money to the president of the United States.
Like Elon Musk, who got a position as a foreigner. Now, Donald Trump is a, second generation foreigner who has birthright citizenship, something that he said that he wants to get rid of. And so is his wife. They have birthright citizenship. His family's not from here. Neither is his wife's family. Neither one of their families are from here, but they get to exercise those rights that they want to take away from people. That's crazy to me.
Lining the president's pockets because we want the president to be loyal to the American people. And then the domestic emoluments clauses are an absolute ban. And basically what they ban is the president from accepting payment from individual states separate and apart from the president's salary on behalf of the American public. The emoluments clauses are one tool.
All presidents of the United States get money from everywhere and everybody because they become this puppet and they take kickbacks and they take money from people to push certain agendas, and they damn sure take money from those lobbyists who got him elected, and they constantly pay presidents to push their agendas. And their agendas is oftentimes against the working class and the poor people. They don't even pay taxes.
That the founders designed specifically to ensure that our democracy could prevail. And I think that they would be horrified, not just about President Trump's conduct, but about the abdication of responsibility from the first branch of government, of Congress, in allowing those egregious violations of the Constitution to persist.
I don't think you people with this phony emoluments clause, and by the way,
again, these folks made an explicit choice to reject a king in favor of a president. President Trump's corruption makes clear that there is no ideology to many of his policies,
and he also makes clear that he wants to be a king. You can see it in his behavior and what he tries to do. He wanted to show North Korea, China, Japan that he's some type of king. It backfired and made him look stupid. You know how these other countries, the aforementioned countries, they will have a military marching down, celebrating with its king or its president or its leader marching down the streets. But he tried to make the soldiers celebrate his birthday with him, and they did it reluctantly, and you can see it in their eyes that they didn't want to be there, and they wasn't marching. They were just marching casually like two brothers down the street having a conversation. If you look at how the other militaries march down the street when they're marching willingly for their leader, you could tell a big difference. A big difference. He wanted to show the people of this world that he runs the United States military. And he probably do, because if he may run the higher ups, the constituency, the higher ups, the high up rank and file, but those soldiers that actually go to battle, they're not having it. And Donald Trump will only replace those who don't do what he asked. That's all he would do. Like, he replaced the brother because he knew he wasn't going to be able to control that brother. He knew he wasn't. And he replaced the sister also, who was the top officer in the National Guard. He knew that he wouldn't be able to control them. So he just got rid of them and put two people who's not qualified to have that position.
That his guiding principle is what is in his best financial and personal interest.
I'm in favor of crypto.
Okay, but let me just ask you, what do you say to those who argue that when they hear that, they worry you're profiting from the presidency?
I'm not profiting from anything. All I'm doing is, I started this long before the election. I want crypto. I think crypto is important.
If that is the case, then the American public can never be sure about what actions he will take. They can never be sure about which foreign government, which campaign donor, which billionaire can influence his decision making.
Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this.
But certainly what it confirms is that the American public's interests are secondary to those interests. Tangible examples of this is President Trump's constant flirtation with Golf, which is backed by the Saudi government. With all of the pressing priorities that the American people are facing, Donald Trump spent time with the leadership of LIV talking about how he could arrange a deal that will ultimately benefit his bottom line, as opposed to using that precious time and his precious resources to addressing the most significant issues facing the American public. That is exactly the kind of threat that the founders were concerned about, and why we have the emoluments clauses in the Constitution. We have seen him make decisions, whether it's on tariffs, which influence people's jobs, which influences our economy, being influenced by his portfolio, being influenced by who is spending money at his properties, who is funneling money into his personal finances. And so those are issues that impact not just Constitution nerds, those are issues that impact everyday people who are concerned about the cost of living for them and their families. But also from a national security perspective, you have, again, allies and adversaries who are seeking to gain influence with this president through his financial entanglements, which is exactly what the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution was meant to prevent. That was exactly the concern of our founders, going so far as to enshrine those provisions in our founding document.
The president's meetings in Qatar come just days after saying he would accept a major gift from the country, a new luxury jet to replace Air Force One.
I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person.
Now, you're not supposed to do that. See, that's the thing. You're not supposed to accept gifts like that as the president of the United States, because you will be acting as a foreign agent to accept gifts like that. And that's also a bribe. See, this man is so damn crooked, he don't even realize how crooked he is. He more than likely do, but he just feel like he's above the law. He's above the rules and the regulations.
Person say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane.
It is the president's job to protect the general welfare of the American public. But time and time again, what we are seeing is that Donald Trump is taking steps to protect his financial interests and those of his billionaire campaign donors. That's not what our founders envisioned for our country. That's not what the emoluments clauses demand of a president. And it's certainly not what any of us think that the American public deserves.
Wicked dude. It's an evil man.
Returning to the high-stakes victory for President Trump, celebrating after pushing through one of the most controversial and sweeping pieces of legislation in recent memory. The president is calling it transformational, even as critics warn it comes at a cost. ABC's Zareen Shah has the details.
Tonight, President Trump declaring on social media, "Congratulations, America."
It's going to make this country into a rocket ship.
After a bruising
Yeah, it's gonna be, and it's gonna go down like one shot out the sky too. Watch.
political fight, the president's signature mega spending bill barely making it through the House.
This vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
Inside President Trump's own party, alarm over the bill's massive price tag. Nonpartisan estimates say it could swell the national debt by $3.4 trillion and roll back Medicaid in a way that could cost nearly 12 million Americans their health coverage. The White House disputes those projections.
It wasn't beautiful enough for me to vote for it.
In the end, just 2 Republicans voted no. The bill includes nearly $4 trillion in tax breaks, mostly benefiting high earners, along with fresh money for border enforcement. It also wipes out taxes on tips and overtime, a major Trump campaign promise, and guts Biden-era climate policies. To pay for it, the legislation slashes Medicaid and reduces food assistance programs. Democrats strongly opposing the bill.
Shame on this institution if this bill passes. That's not America. We're better than this.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries speaking for a record-breaking 8 hours and 44 minutes on the House floor in a marathon protest. And tonight, President Trump in Iowa touting his hard-fought win.
There could be no better birthday present for America than the phenomenal victory we achieved just hours ago when Congress passed the one big, beautiful bill to make America great again.
Zoreen Shah, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Now we're going to go to the last video of this stream. We're going to talk about Trump's Alligator, Alcatraz, the inhumane wickedness. And this is wicked. Peace to my brother Kyrie, of the enemy's public. Salute to you, my brother. Peace. Now, this facility is in Florida, and it took 7 weeks to build this. It's on a abandoned airstrip in Florida, and it's surrounded by alligators and poisonous snakes. It's a detention center for immigrants. And not only that, we're going to see they actually brought the alligators and put the alligators in the swamp surrounding the prison to make it even more inescapable. Anyone who has a mind like this is absolutely wicked. Watch. It housed up to 3,000 people. I think they're going to employ 200 to 300 people there, and they wouldn't even allow the officials of government in Florida to inspect it to see if it was fit to house people. Check this out.
came here on our statutory authority to be able to visit this detention center. We were denied access citing safety reasons. We asked then, and we've actually, so for the record, we've been waiting for about 2 hours to get in. According to the statute, it's a shall, not a may. We're able to come unannounced without providing notice. They said we didn't give notice. There was a press release that went out at 11:30 that we were coming here. The GOP welcomed us, so they knew we were coming. It is interesting that it is called unsafe when just hours ago that the President of the United States and Republican lawmakers were allowed to have access to this facility. It is also concerning that there are human beings, detainees in here, that if it's unsafe for us to be in here, how is it safe for them to be present? This could not and should not be happening. And I believe, and I think we all can agree, that what's happening, and there's more than likely inhumane, it's more than likely cruel. We've seen pictures of flooding. We've seen pictures of, we've been out here in the rain. We've seen the mosquitoes. So if this is happening to us, I can't imagine what's happening to them. I asked the question, I'm a lawyer. If I have a client in there, am I able to go see them? I was told yes. And they said, okay, well, I have a client in there. Can I go see them? I was told no. So make it make sense.
If you're new here, I usually
Alligators that they're bringing.
talk about some pretty scary stuff, but this next one is not just scary, it's real, and it's happening right now in Florida. Yo, it's called Alligator Alcatraz, and yes, that's what people actually call it. A detention compound built in just 8 days by the Trump administration and the state of Florida. It holds up to 3,000 undocumented immigrants in temporary custody, surrounded by swamps, alligators, and razor wire. Locals say once you're inside, there's no getting out. NBC News confirmed the location cost nearly $450 million per year, funded partially through FEMA, and was intended for short-term holding, 2 weeks max. But here's where it gets dark. Some detainees were reportedly held for longer with no clear records. Why is it called Alligator Alcatraz? Because the facility is surrounded by deep swamp waters filled with actual alligators. Locals near Homestead say the design wasn't accidental. They say it was intentional, a real-life moat making escape impossible. And here's where it gets disturbing. Multiple anonymous ICE whistleblowers claim some detainees disappeared from the system entirely. No names, no transfer paperwork, and nobody's talking about it. Now, conspiracy forums say the facility flooded in early 2024 and rumors started flying. Some claim bodies were found in the water. Officials denied everything, but satellite footage tells a different story, allegedly.
They're literally selecting the biggest alligators one by one to surround what they're calling the Alligator Alcatraz, built in just 8 days in the Florida Everglades. If you haven't heard, people are calling this absolutely inhumane. This is where they plan to detain up to 3,000 individuals at a time, people arrested by federal agents who don't have their papers. Did I mention the entire facility is surrounded by water filled with massive alligators and some of the most poisonous snakes on the continent? I never thought I'd hear something like this happening in America. Apparently, the state of Florida was behind the construction. They were initially planning to build it.
See, this person sounds like she's young, and when she heard someone like a Malcolm or somebody like a Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or somebody like a Dr. Khaled call this government wicked, she should have been listening to them. And because now, as someone who's witnessing the wickedness of this government, she can now point to something that's inhumane. And this is not nothing new, because they used to feed our children to the same alligators. They would feed our children to them, snatch our babies up and feed them to an alligator. So this is nothing new. Inhumane is a understatement. It's an understatement.
In just 72 hours, but ran into regulatory delays. Still, 8 days is insanely fast. This is what it currently looks like. Officials say escaping from Alligator Alcatraz is nearly impossible. Grok stated that any escapee who tries to cross those wetlands would face countless alligators, pythons, and other deadly wildlife, and likely wouldn't survive. The fact that they're literally using nature as a lethal barrier
if it's surrounded by the swamp and alligators and other poisonous snakes, who's to say that the alligators and the snakes won't come inland? Because you can go as far down as Myrtle Beach and see a damn alligator crossing the street. You don't even have to go to Florida to witness an alligator crossing the damn street. So if it's surrounded by all of that, the alligators are going to end up in one of their damn beds, or they may open up the toilet and see a snake coming out of the if they have adequate septic tanks and toilets and everything. Because knowing Donald Trump and how wicked he is, I don't know. It probably don't even have it. They probably don't have a septic system.
Barrier feels like something out of a dystopian movie. Ted, this is honestly doing way too much. What do you think about this?
If the Trump administration would do this to anyone, what make ignorant ass Negroes think that they won't do this to us? Who says one of us won't end up there? I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening. I appreciate it. I'm going to land this right here. I want to end the stream right here. And I want to thank everyone for joining me this evening. Before I go, I want to do a quick promo really quick. If you haven't, get your copy of my wife's book, Fire. Go to Amazon. It's on paperback or Kindle. Angela King James. The book is called Fire. As a matter of fact, let me cam up and show you how the book looks. The book is called Fire. Get your copy of my wife's book, Fire. It's on paperback or it's on Kindle. Fire 2, the finale, will be out shortly. It'll be out soon. So get your copy of Fire. But before I go, I want to thank my brother, Kyrie of the Enemies Public. I want to thank Dominique. Thanks for tapping in. My brother, Hurricane JW. My brother, Talk Your Talk Media. Thanks for tapping in. My brother, The Realist McCoy. Thank you all for tapping in. Thank my wife for tapping in. I know she's watching. She's always watching. I appreciate it. My brother, T. Wriggles. Thank you for tapping in. And until next time, this is the Enemies Public. I am Bro.Nasir. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Oh yeah, thanks to Up Castling and Zoe with the Locks. Thank you for tapping in. Until next time, salute, peace to you all.
Enemy Public, I saw your thing on YouTube, man. Keep doing your thing, bro.